Here we go. Welcome to Daswell and Hunt. I'm Pierre Ruth for Information Week. And in this episode, we are taking a look at what we're calling Nailing the Initiative, taking a look at a project that C-suite tech leadership was in charge of, and essentially talking about the wins that came through for the organization, looking at kind of the groundwork that needed to be done. What were the pain points? What led to the overall push, and getting a sense of what the results were. And for this episode, I'm joined by Jeff Reihl, who is the Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer for LexisNexis on the legal and professional side. Jeff, thank you so much for being yourself available and telling your story today.
Sure. No, I'm happy to be here.
All right, great. Okay, Jeff, so let's talk about what was the initiative? What was the project? What were you working on? And from there, let's talk about what LexisNexis was looking at and needed to kind of change up, move forward.
Sure. Well, maybe to start with a little bit of context, we provide analytics and AI solutions to legal professionals around the globe, and over time we've been experimenting and working with AI technologies for a number of years. Including using GPT 3.0 when it first came out. But at that time, it was kind of behind the scenes within our product. But when ChatGPT came out in November of 2022, that really changed everything for us, because what we saw with that technology was there was a big opportunity to leverage that technology along with the technology and content, the information that we had, to really provide a differentiated solution to the legal market.
Gotcha. So how did you go about really kind of like gathering the resources and expertise you really needed to kind of take action on this?
Yeah, so like I said, we had been working with this type of technology for a while. We were familiar with these type of capabilities starting back in 2018 when we were using BERT right after Google published the white paper. And so we're familiar with it. So what happened was when ChatGPT came out, me along with my peers and technology staff and data scientists started doing some experiment. And in December, so just a month after ChatGPT was launched, we did a presentation to the LexisNexis senior leadership team. So all of the business unit leaders, our CEO, CFO, and just showed them the progress that was being made with large language models and the capabilities of this technology. And so it really started by helping our business unit leaders understand the capabilities and how this could be a game changer. And that allowed us to get some momentum behind reassigning some staff to start doing some skunkworks type work, just experimenting with the new models that were out, demonstrating what the capabilities were, demonstrating some of those capabilities directly with customers and getting their feedback. And by February of 2023, so just a couple months later, we made the decision as an organization to really invest in this space because we saw the significant opportunity. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from customers, legal professionals, about the capabilities of this technology. And so that really got us started. So we started reassigning our data scientists from different parts of the organization, started the skunkworks team, and it just built from there.
Gotcha. And were there any surprises along the way as you're going through the process? And then also, like, how did your time frame kind of work out versus, how you planned things and then how it actually proceeded?
I would say a couple of surprises. One was, first of all, the legal profession has historically not been a leader in technology. So they usually were very conservative when it came to adopting new technologies, and in particular AI technologies, because there's been a lot of hype in the past and a lot of disappointments in terms of, is this technology really going to help legal professionals do their jobs better? And so one big surprise for me came about. We had a conference in New York. It's called Legal Week in February of that year. And I was moderating a workshop. It was a 3-hour workshop. And what we discovered there was that we started the session and there was standing room only in a big auditorium in the Hilton in New York City. And it was so busy that we had to stop the workshop, take a wall out to double the capacity of the auditorium. And so that right away told us, wow, this is different. The legal industry and legal professionals are truly interested in this technology. They'd been experimenting with ChatGPT, got to see what it could do. And so one big surprise was this market, our customers were truly embracing this technology, and we're at that session to really understand, wow, what can this really do? What do I have to be concerned with from they had heard about these things called hallucinations and security, and what is this stuff called pre-training, and what are these large language models? What are they actually capable of doing, and where are they going? So that was one big surprise. Is I think that just the willingness to adopt and experiment with this technology within the legal profession has historically been quite conservative. What was there? I would say the second thing was, as a larger organization, we were able to pivot quite fast because I think, number one, our CEO was 100% behind the initiative. He saw the opportunity. And secondly, the rest of the business got behind it. And what that meant was we had to stop various other initiatives that were already underway, planned for the year. And sometimes you get pushback from different people in the organization. Oh, my project is the most important project to do. But in this case, that didn't happen at all. So we were able to quickly reassign people to start working on this, people with the right skills. And so that was a surprise earlier on. So those would be a couple of things that I'd mention.
Gotcha. And in terms of the other projects, were they, time change, was it for a full year, or was it a matter of months in terms of like those other projects?
A lot of them stopped literally permanently, just because these projects weren't as high a priority as this opportunity for us. Some other projects we just delayed for a period of time until we could backfill some of the key resources that we did over time, because at that time we just opened the recruiting spigot, so to speak, to really hire as many data scientists as we could find anywhere around the globe where we had offices. And so some were paused for a quarter or 2 quarters. Others were put in the background permanently.
Gotcha. So a little about the project, the idea of things being kind of set aside permanently. Are you foreseeing that with what evolved from this initiative, that there might be potential that like, hey, there might be other elements that we can kind of like just move on from, hey, yeah, now that we've got these capabilities in place, we don't necessarily need to keep grinding at the wheel over here.
That's exactly right. So some of those initiatives were internal in nature, i.e. allowing us to be more efficient. We have, for example, an editorial organization that has historically reviewed cases and updated documents and provided summaries for cases. Now all of a sudden we have some new technology that will allow us to completely replace the work that was underway. So we were doing some NLP type work, some ML type work, and this technology would allow us to basically, we don't need to do that project anymore because this stuff will auto summarize the documents for us. We don't have to use BERT and some of more traditional tools at the time. So it absolutely did replace the need to complete these other projects because the new technology was essentially significantly better.
Gotcha. Since you've got this in process, and we can go over the time frame, and you said this started just months after ChatGPT.
It was literally months after ChatGPT. So December we did the presentation. By February we already had a team working on it. That team scaled from 12 or 14 people up to 100 people in a couple of months. So we reassigned, we reprioritized, and by October of 2023, we had launched the first version of the product to our market.
Gotcha. How has this, with what you've seen, have you hit a place where you're saying, okay, you've got this under our belt, we've seen how we'll be able to use this internally. have you come up with a list of, all right, this is what we would like to be able to do next, or this is what we would like to see next with this technology for LexisNexis's needs? That whether it's happening or not, but like, do you have like kind of a list of like, if we could do these things next?
Yes. Yeah. What's interesting is if you think about what lawyers do, they spend a lot of time with in an activity called legal research. What are other cases that are similar to my case, so I can make arguments from the judge to win my case? They're also spending a lot of time creating documents. Those documents could be contracts, briefs, pleadings, motions, messages to their clients. And so what we started out with was 4 specific use cases. Now, those 4 use cases, which were fairly generic, have expanded significantly. And with new capabilities like Agentic AI, generative AI, we can now focus much more on specific workflows. So that's where we're going now, is personalizing the experience and essentially providing a legal assistant to the legal professional to help them do their job to get more efficient. And so we have a significant backlog of opportunities. And again, one of the reasons why some of these other projects, have been put on permanent hold is these opportunities are significantly bigger and more impactful for our customers than those other projects that we had scheduled before. So we have a significant backlog, but essentially think about it as, a more personalized and more customized experience for our end user. If I'm an M&A attorney, that workflow is optimized for the type of work I do as an M&A lawyer in this jurisdiction. And so it's that kind of thing in terms of where we're going in the future. Big opportunity for what lawyers do. So the marriage of this technology along with our current technology and our data really is a big opportunity for us. So there's a laundry list of great opportunities, and literally at this point in time we can't hire enough data scientists and ML engineers to kind of keep up with the opportunity.
Gotcha. Go further on that about looking for ML engineers and the kind of personnel. Like, what other internal changes has this kind of really kind of prompted within the organization? What in terms of talk about the hiring, but also training, or just the way the teams operate within LexisNexis around this now.
Yeah, that's really good point, because we did have to change our team makeup. So if you thought about before, if you go back a few years ago, most of our teams were led by a product manager. There would be a UX designer, a tech lead, and then engineers supporting the project. Almost every project now includes data scientists as part of that cross-functional team. So, that's been a big change. I think the way we develop software has changed as well, because traditional software development is pretty predictable. You can look at your backlog and create your story points, and you can estimate how long this is going to take. I know this particular task has this complexity. I can do the work, and I have a pretty good idea of when I can deliver. With data science type projects, there's more experimentation. And so you don't know in advance how many iterations you might have to make testing with different models to get to the right answer. So there's levels of quality that you have to think about. And so typically you say, does it meet these features? Is the performance good? Great, I've delivered. But in this case, it's now, is that answer that we're getting back from the large language model sufficient enough to meet the customer's needs? And so our quality metrics have changed quite significantly as well. And the other thing I would add is there's a whole new dynamic that you have to think about from a performance perspective. So, we're used to, a few millisecond response. Well, large language models don't respond in a few milliseconds, particularly the larger models with more complex queries. Secondly, the costs are very, very different. So, for those of you out there that have played around with these large language models, the cost is they have a different paradigm: input tokens, output tokens, throughput, model units in the case of AWS, PTUs in the case of Microsoft Azure. And so the costs are something you really have to consider, and you have to think about how much throughput you're going to have with these models, and how do you optimize that to help manage costs. So our cloud business office that monitors costs and tracks all of our costs and does projections, we had to redo that, because these are completely different processing units, I'll just call them that for the time being, that have different costs and different dynamics. So that was a pretty significant change for us as well.
Gotcha. Can we talk a little bit more in terms of, I guess, like the actual ways and functionality that the large language model and AI is being used?
Sure.
So our audience really has a good understanding.
Sure.
There can be some ways where what kind of like need for like oversight for what it's actually doing.
Right.
You want to have in place, because there's definitely, depending on what's being asked of it, what the results might be, it's going to tell you that the moon is made out of cream cheese, or something to try and make the question, what's being asked to make the person happy, versus actually giving you reality. So let's talk through a little bit about like the actual functionality and what oversight you felt like was really necessary to get what you were looking for versus what it was just trying to do to make you happy.
Sure. So let's give a scenario. I'll start with a scenario before kind of generative AI. So a typical user would log in and they would do a search for, tell me, I'm looking for cases related to this particular legal topic or this legal issue in my jurisdiction. And what we would provide back, similar to what Google does, is a list of cases, links to those cases, and the end user could then select the case and review the case, and we'd provide navigation tools to get them to different parts of the case as quickly as possible. Fast forward to where we are now. Now it's a conversational search. Before it was you type in an input, you get the results. You type in your next input, you get the results. Now we have conversational search. So a user can ask that same question, and then they can refine. They can refine the query based on the answer they get back. The way it works internally is we've got a multi-model approach. So as soon as the end user types in their query, the first thing we do is we take that query and we send it to a large language model to understand the user's intent. And then based on the user's intent, what they're looking to do, we can route that, we can craft up a better search that then goes to our search engine. So we have a RAG approach where we're grounding all of the answers in our database, all the data around cases. And what we could do from there is the output of that could then be fed back into another large language models to summarize the results and to provide additional information. So it's a combination of using these models to give better output, more summarized output. But the way that we deal with hallucinations is we always provide links to the source of where we got the answer. So if the answer is coming back from these are the top 3 cases, and we've provided a summarized result, which comes out of the large language model, then we can provide links to that data back in our database using the RAG approach to allow the end user to validate the answer. So that's just one example. Another example is a customer can take one of their own documents. Say they have a brief, legal brief that they're reviewing. They can submit that legal brief to us, and then we can summarize it. They can ask questions about the document, or they can upload multiple documents and ask questions. So those are things we didn't do before that we can now do. A third example is creating a brief. So if you think about what a lawyer does, they have to type in and create this brief. What we can do with this the generative capabilities of large language models combined with our data and some of the data that we have is we can help create a draft of that brief for them. So it saves them a lot of time. So it's those kinds of things that we can now do with large language models that we could not do before. And what we do is for each of those individual specific tasks, we pick the large language model that number one, provides the best answer at the fastest performance at the lowest cost. So we're continually replacing different models with new models that come out from either OpenAI, Anthropic. We've got a fine-tuned version of Mistral that we're using. So multiple models and multiple vendors. And we've got a process by which we can validate and test the quality of new models as they're coming out as it relates to our use cases and understand the performance dynamics and the cost. So we look at those three kind of characteristics of these models, and it's always evolving, and we're always changing and upgrading to different models as they come out.
Gotcha. And how do you go about really how do you gauge the effectiveness of this effort? How have you kind of determine not only just the ROI for your organization, but just really kind of saying like, hey, this met what we were looking at. What kind of criteria do you say
So when we're doing the analysis of doing the testing before we launch it to customers, we first have an automated set of test tools that will give the quality of the answer that we're providing. Let's take the example of conversational search. And those quality metrics, if they're met, we always use legal professionals. We've got a group of trained lawyers that will then also assess the quality, the consistency. Did it actually answer the question, the usefulness of the results that we're providing? So we have a whole new series of metrics that we use for measuring for each different type of activity that we're performing to make sure that the quality and performance is there. Automated testing initially, in some cases, we'll use a different model to test the results of another model. But in the end, before we launch into production, we will always have legal professionals validate that the model is providing the best answers and the best outcome. In terms of adoption and usage, we have seen significant adoption. Again, back to the surprise I mentioned earlier, that legal professionals see the opportunity. There's a great opportunity for them to be more efficient, get better answers back, help them draft their documents much more quickly. So our adoption rates, we're always measuring the usage. We're getting NPS feedback from our customers. All of those metrics are going in the right direction. And so, we use a lot of those kind of ways of measuring. Obviously, revenue is something we always track. This is an upsell opportunity for us. So, we've never seen kind of this type of adoption for a new product in at least since I've been here, and it's been 18 years that I've been with the company.
Gotcha. Well, it definitely sounds like a resounding success story. So, Jeff, listen, those are the questions we had for you today. I really appreciate you sharing, how this project worked out for you and for LexisNexis. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Appreciate it.
You can find the DOS Won't Hunt podcast on Podbean, Spotify, and other popular podcast platforms.